in there, and then Coffee Club presentation, week 7. Is that up, Nick? You can see that, can you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jackie, we'll try and do an easy one next time. You'll be too young to know some of them, I think. Right, okay, we'll get cracking, guys. So this is week 7 now. Much from looking at the names, a little bit with the editing afterwards as well. Make sure you've got a brew to hand if you have. These have been lasting anywhere between sort of an hour to 2 hours, dependent on sort of engagement. So just be prepared for that. Feel free, it's quite informal. So we've had some that have logged out halfway through, some that have to jump out and go. We will pause for the clap. So that's one thing that we've said every week. We'll pause probably 58 minutes too. And then we'll get cracking and go from there. Probably a couple of minutes after the 8 o'clock clap when you return. Laptops better. Those that have sort of worked their way through, this is the 7th week now, so you'll have had some issues to start with. I think we've got there really. If you're on a smartphone watching it, toggle between the screens, so just press on the screen. It should allow you to go on the chat function. Mute yourself, but then feel free to unmute yourself when you're going to ask something. So we're trying to keep it quite informal but quite engaging. So I'd rather you ask the question rather than just spoke in the chat function. But ultimately as well, if you want me or Ben, we'll ask the questions of the guys on the chat. Call, text, WhatsApp, Ben. So he's got his number on there. He is my boss. He's the CEO, but he is also a great tech support. He told me off through the week for not thanking him. So there's an underhanded second-hand thanks, Ben. But he does a great job, and he will drop things in the chat function. He'll drop stuff, links to certain. If the guys on the chat this evening, they'll mention certain things, he'll try and find them and drop them in the chat function again. So he does a lot more than what I do on this, so it's great stuff. Which leads us on to this evening, really. So great to have sort of the mentor team. You'll definitely know, or most of you'll know definitely a couple of them, and you'll definitely know Steve by the end of tonight if you've not seen Steve before. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves. What I would say is these guys are true grassroots people at heart, so they are. So, and that's all 3 of them. They probably come across everything that you come across on a regular basis. So if it's not on topic, but you've got a sort of a burning question that's been maybe from some reflection over the last few weeks, feel free. There's a wealth of knowledge and experience sort of on the call between the 3 of them. So they will happily share things where they can. There's a particular theme and focus, and to be fair, I'm intrigued myself. So I know that Steve and Graham, the 3 of them have worked sort of hard on some content for you this evening. So feel free to utilise and challenge or question accordingly. Which kind of leads us on to the 3 of you. So I don't know who wants to go first in introducing. I don't know if Steve, do you want to start and then bring the guys in?
Yeah, lovely. Thanks, James. Good evening, everyone. Great to be here. But great to be on tonight. I heard such good things about these events. So thanks to James and the team, and to Ben for putting them on, and for inviting us on. Steve Spinneys, I'm the Regional Coach Mentor Officer for the North West. So primarily my role is to support and work with coach mentors, helping grassroots coaches in and around the North West, of which we have some really good mentors working in around Cumberland FA. So it's about really helping grassroots coaches get better. It's particularly in their context. Grassroots coach myself now for about 20 years, where obviously got involved as a parent originally, helping my young son. He's now 24, come through and play football. And I've no doubt I'll speak to later on, but a huge lover of grassroots football, and really admire the work that the county FAs and the coach mentor team do. Thanks, James.
Cheers, Dave. Nick, Graham, who wants to jump in first?
Is the next slide on me, James?
Yeah. Yeah, do you want the slide up?
Yeah, you can do, yeah.
I'll come back to that one, yeah.
Hi everyone, and I'll just echo Steve's thanks there to James and Ben and to everyone on the club as well. I'm starting to really look forward to the Thursday nights now, and I think there's been some great content so far. So that's a little bit about me. It reads from left to right, not from the Cumberland FA and the FA to the pub, from the pub to the Cumberland FA and FA. I started about 18 years ago with a pub team, Sunday League, treasurer, manager, secretary, but definitely not a coach. And I decided in 2005 I would have a look at coaching badges. Done level 1 off my own back. Decided I'd need to get some experience, and ended up at Penrith AFC, where I worked late foundation phase through to managing the ladies team, coaching the men's team, and I also got a break to work in the Cumberland FA's Girls Centre of Excellence, where Ian Bateman was the centre manager, and Martin Diggle was working there as well, which was great experience, two real positive influences on my development. From there, about 2012, I think it was, I went to work at Carlisle United, had 5 seasons there, 10s, 11s and 13s, and also was successful in an application to join the Coach Mentor programme. And I've been working on the Coach Mentor programme since. That's helped me to develop into tutoring, and my other role at the moment, or before the lockdown, was the County FA's Girls Advanced Coaching Centre Manager. So that's a little bit about me and my journey, and hopefully we'll get on to sharing some experiences from that, and potentially bringing that into mentoring and the technical corner later on. So, yeah.
You've got to remember to unmute yourself, haven't you? Cheers, Nick. Graham, do you want to jump in, pal, and just give an overview of
So, evening everyone. It's nice to be here. There's been a few quite kind of high quality guests the last few weeks, so it kind of feels quite nice to be following them. Just a little bit about my sort of background from a coaching point of view. I started just over 10 years ago at Harrowby Catholic Club, and I worked with a team there from under 7s through to under 11s. And if I think about that from a mentoring point of view, how I got involved at the club was through someone that I went to college with. They were an adult learner and spoke to our class and said that there was opportunities to go and help at the club. And as a result of that, that's how I got involved. And during the time at Harrowby, I was always able to go to him as like a sounding board for different ideas and stuff like that. So kind of thinking back, I had that mentoring experience quite early. After I decided to move on from the Harrowby Catholic Club, I was fortunate to gain employment with the Cumberland FA as one of the coaches for the girls BDC. And also during that time, I took on a grassroots team at Guildford Park as well, which was, for a couple of years, was a really, really good experience. Around 2017, so nearly 3 years ago, I was able to sort of gain employment on the Coach Mentor programme with Steve and Nick, and I've been working on there for about 3 seasons now. And the last few seasons, from a grassroots point of view, I've been involved with Penrith Juniors as well. And alongside that, I also work with Nick on the girls ACC programme as an under 14s coach as well. Okay, so just a little bit about my background there. James, can you move the slide on, please? That's all right.
Graham, do you want to go back to the questions, or do you want to go forward?
Yeah, can you go back to the questions, please? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just before, obviously, like James said before, we're going to talk a little bit around the mentoring program and the sort of areas that we sort of work and support grassroots coaches in. We asked you a few questions last week, and I think James sent these out again today for you to have a little bit of a think about. We are going to refer back to these further in the presentation. So if you want to start putting some of your thoughts, some of your answers into the chat, that would be great. So the first question was, are Liverpool on ball team? Second question was, is David De Gea one of the top 5 goalkeepers in the Premier League? And the final question was, when was the last time you delivered a session around turning on the ball? Okay, so if you've got any thoughts, drop them into the chat, please. Can you move on to the next one, James, please?
Is it which one? FA
Just the one after. Yeah, please.
Is that showing?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, cheers. So, like we mentioned, Nick, Steve, and myself are part of the FA Coach Mentor Program, and the program really, as the sort of quote on the slide shows, the program's there to support grassroots coaches within their own sort of journey, I suppose. Kind of the support that we offer, it's done in loads of different ways. So a lot of it's done sort of one-to-one basis, whether that's kind of observing a training session and discussing some of the things that are happening. It might be a chat away from the training ground where sort of maybe discuss some of your own ideas around session planning and things like that. And some stuff that we've started to do a little bit more of over the last season is sort of working in a more of a group environment. So we've done some stuff with Guildford Park and Abbey Town, for example, where we've done like a seminar on a specific theme. So it might be ball mastery, staying on the ball, things like that. So we kind of provide support in loads and loads of different areas. I think what we're going to talk about a little bit just now is what we mean by the term mentoring. So we work on the Coach Mentor program. We try to provide coaches with support, but what does mentoring actually look like, and what does it mean? Okay. Can you move the slide on, please, James?
Yeah. Is it shown? Does it come up?
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
So, kind of what is mentoring? When Jack was on last week, he said something along the lines of, "It's okay to say you don't know." And some of the information that I've got on here, it's a really good insight into sort of mentoring and where it's came from. But if you were to ask me a few more questions on this, my answer might be I don't know. But I'll try and give you a bit of a background as best as possible. So the concept of mentoring is believed to have came from ancient Greece, and there's a poem called Odyssey, which outlines how goddess Anthea acted as a protector to Odysseus and Telemachus in the Trojan War. And I think that provides a little bit of maybe changes one or two people's perceptions slightly, in the sense that mentoring can often be seen as a newer thing, so something that's developed in recent history, when the reality is that research shows it's been something that's around for a very long time. And on top of that, there's sort of two different approaches to mentoring. There's a guide and follow approach, which is popular in America, and then there's more of a developmental approach, which is kind of preferred within Europe. And I think that is something that hopefully as we go through, you'll see some of the differences between the two approaches. And certainly from my perspective, in my time as a coach mentor, I'd like to think that my approach has changed from more from a guide and follow to a developmental approach anyways. Do you mind moving on, James?
Yeah. Is it coming through, Graham, on your side?
Yeah, it's here now, yeah.
Yeah.
So just talking a little bit more around the two models. The European model is something that is kind of around, it's almost reciprocal. So rather than mentor working with a coach and perhaps providing them with some sort of pointed feedback like do this or do that, the European model is a little bit different. It's different, and it's based around almost discussion, I would suggest, in the sense that perhaps you bounce ideas off each other, maybe compare and contrast ideas on a certain subject and things like that. So it's a little bit more, like I say, a little bit more reciprocal, and there's perhaps things that the mentor can take from the process as well as the mentee. Whereas with the American model, it might be a case of the mentor showing a coach what to do, and then they try and replicate that, which has some value to an extent, but then also it perhaps limits creativity and freedom for people to experiment themselves. And I think another point to think about in this area is something called dialogic mentoring, which is some of what I talked about. It's a two-way sort of collaborative process in which participants are critically reflective. So it's something that, like I say, people are working together towards one common goal rather than one person showing the other how to do something. So kind of in terms of how we try to put this into practice as mentors, me and Nick had a chat about this in the sort of planning for tonight, and we came up with sort of 3 key things that we tried to do, and I'll go through those now. So, James, can you move it on?
I am moving it when you say mate, but I think it's just taken a little longer to come through on your side.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. So I think, like I say, we try to focus on 3 key things. So the first one would be to try and promote discussion. And personally, it's not always around initially discussion about football. And one of the things that the programme is very keen to promote is the building of rapport between a mentor and a coach. And personally, that can happen in loads of different ways. So, for example, a coach that I've worked with for the last couple of years, one of the first things that we sort of built rapport over was Speedway. So anyone who lives out West Cumbria would know there was a Speedway team there until very recently, working in Comets. I was quite a big fan, and it turned out that the coach that I worked with, he was one of the photographers for working in Comets promotion. So one of the first things that we sort of had a discussion over was around sort of Saturday nights at work and the perception he had of things in comparison to what I had being in the stands. And kind of from that, the relationship developed to a point where we were sort of comfortable sharing different thoughts and ideas with each other about football. So discussion happened in terms of building rapport, and then hopefully after that initial sort of process has taken place, the discussions then turned to football and sort of sharing different ideas and stuff like that. I suppose around that, we also try to look at the bigger picture as well, or help coaches to look at the bigger picture. So perhaps it might be to look beyond what they see right in front of them at a time, whether that's during a game or during a session, and consider the wider impact of the work that they do. And I think kind of one of the things why that's maybe important to me personally is in my sort of day job as a teacher, during my teacher training, I was talking to my tutor around child development and working with individuals sort of in a sporting environment. And I was explaining a situation with a child and their sort of struggles they were having at the time on a match day playing on a Saturday. And I was supporting in those situations. And my tutor, he said to me, he says, Graham, you should always try to catch someone doing something right. And I sort of said, what do you mean? He says, well, no matter what someone's doing and what situation they're in, there'll always be something positive going on. And since then, I think that can apply to anything in life. And if we work from a context of coaching, it might, no matter what a session looks like, there'll always be something that's positive within that. And if we can help people to identify that and be aware of the good things, it then becomes slightly easier to work on the things that maybe didn't go as well as you would like or the players might like. And then I think the final point would be to challenge thinking. So where possible, we think being challenged on your coaching beliefs and values in the right way can be a positive tool for development. So it's something that if you're challenged on something and it's done constructively, it should encourage you to reflect and consider things from a different perspective. And if you can do that, it's going to help you to become a sort of better and more effective coach as well. And I suppose from what we've chatted about, or what I've chatted about over the last 10, 15 minutes, hopefully you're starting to see why we asked you these questions last week. Nick's going to talk a little bit more around the Liverpool question, but I can see through some of the things or some of the comments in the chat that the questions prompted discussion. So there seems to be a few different ideas around kind of Liverpool's sort of philosophy and way of playing, which is quite good to see. Exploring the bigger picture, that was sort of linked to the David De Gea question. We see David De Gea make saves that possibly no other keeper can make, but if you look beyond those sort of highlights, I suppose, there's also a keeper there who perhaps doesn't save as many shots as he should, contributes to more errors than other goalkeepers in the league, and perhaps in comparison to some of the stronger keepers or some of the more favoured keepers at the moment in the league, isn't performing or doesn't offer the same attributes. And then the final question around turning. Have we had any feedback on the turning question on the chat or not really?
Yeah, we have, Graham. Well, I think we've certainly had. I know Mr. Qualfro's definitely put an answer in there. Ben, are you able to unmute yourself, pal, and just share with you? So I probably should have introduced Ben as well. Ben is on from the Isle of Man, and Ben does a lot of work sort of on the Isle of Man, particularly around the sort of coaching courses and the stuff. So Ben, do you want to share your answer, mate, if you're there?
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can, Paul.
Yeah. Terrific. Yeah, everyone, good to see everyone. I had to join these sessions because otherwise I've got a bit stir crazy here on the Isle of Man being an island. Yeah, my answer was similar to, I've seen someone else put, I can't find, was it Craig, I think it was. Yeah, Craig Bristow put it as well. I imagine Craig works with foundation phase as well. Because I work with foundation phase most of the time, so a lot of my stuff is around staying on the ball, mastering the ball, and as a result of that, turning and protecting it comes into every session we do. Looking at what Craig said there, not specifically a theme of turning, but it'll be included with every session. That's very similar to how I see it myself.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think when we were talking about sort of putting this sort of presentation together, we talked a little bit about a theme that we felt was maybe not sort of discussed or delivered, perhaps as often as it might do. And I think that it was something just to get people thinking around what they do and how they do it. When I spoke with Nick around this, we did actually discuss what Ben just said, in the sense that turning's often incorporated within a session, but how often is maybe turning the main focus of the session as well. So hopefully you're starting to see why we've asked you some of the questions and how they may be linked to that we try to do when we're working with coaches within the area.
Graham, sorry mate, just while we're on, so I know, because I know you've gone through sort of that process, and for the guys that are on the call that haven't maybe been in contact with the coach mentor team, just share with sort of how sort of free and on sort of the coach's terms it is. So I know Justin's on the call, but I don't know if he can speak or not, and I know Justin had some experience with Dan, who's just come in, I think. Just share with the guys, because coming out of this lockdown, it might be when we get back up and running that some of the people on the call might want to tap into the programme, and I know we'll cover it at the end. Can you just share with them how sort of free it's? Yes, you've put some points in there around how you do, but ultimately it's kind of on the coach's terms as well.
Yeah, very much so. So I think a lot of it is, from my point of view, if we're working with a coach on a one-to-one basis, for example, what we like to try and do is, after the session, is almost build a picture of what the coach seen themselves, and I think from that we can then try to provide some sort of feedback and support that links to their own observations. So rather than ourselves perhaps seeing something and focusing our feedback around that, it might be that an individual feels that just thinking back to last week, the behaviour of certain players or certain children in the group wasn't ideal. So we might tailor the feedback that we provide or that we offer to suit their needs, to suit their sort of, trying to think of the word, to suit what they're working towards, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I think in terms of the sort of question you asked is very much what we do, is very much at the sort of almost the request of the coach. So if they would like us to be there kind of once a week, we can potentially do that. If it's something maybe once or twice a month, that's something that can happen as well. And then the support doesn't always have to be within a session too. It can also be a sort of a sit down in an evening and just chat through sort of recent events and things like that, and look at different ways of doing things.
Good stuff. Spot on, mate.
So I think now it's sort of over to Nick just to carry on with a couple of points that I've made.
Cheers, Graham. So yeah, love the discussion in the chat box. Just been sort of looking through and making a few notes, and I guess from my point of view as a mentor, that we'll move on to being another set of eyes for a coach and maybe I don't know, I suppose a critical friend, or somebody you can bounce some ideas off. But I put together, I looked into three different sets of stats, and I kind of put this slide together just to show you the actual numbers, and they're pretty close to where the cut-off point was this season. So I think you can see plainly from that Liverpool, they're not a long ball team, but they do play directly, and I think Brian and Andrew were a couple that I noticed that had a real good feel for the Liverpool playing style. They do play a lot more direct football than any other of the top six, and that shows there with with the amount of long passes that they've played, is ranked 5 in the Premier League, whereas Man City's is ranked 20. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
In terms of that, it kind of got me. It kind of got me thinking a while ago about. I guess you seen my journey earlier on, and I was working with a coach at Penrith, and also some of my time at Carlisle, where we have this philosophy and there's this trend of playing out from the back, and we want to try and play through the thirds, and it struck on me as I guess I was trying to be a mentor at the time, but not really in the capacity that I am now, where I'm working with a coach and the coach is working towards a certain qualification, and I was the ladies team manager, and we were doing quite well at the time, but I know I needed to give him some time with the team, some time to develop himself and to work towards his qualification. So I was trying to manage that as well, and I've given him a week with the team when to be fair, we were playing at home in a regional league, and we were playing against a team that were in the bottom 4 of the table, and he's had the team, and I sort of said, look, I'm here on match day, but you take the team, you're free to pick the team, you're free to roll with it, just go and set it up through the week and play at the weekend. And as I say, we had this philosophy of playing from the back and playing through the thirds, and then all of a sudden it kind of dawned on us that, hang on a minute, are we doing these players a bit of a disservice here? Are we letting them down here? Because I was watching this game when I'm stood back and I'm that other set of eyes and I'm not emotionally involved in it, and I'm looking at it and thinking, we've got a chance to play in behind there, we've got a chance to play through there, we've got a chance to hit the striker early there, and we're not doing it because we're coaching the team to play from back to front and not front to back. Does that make sense? And the same things happen again at Carlisle, and again I'm seeing the same things, and I'm thinking to myself, hang on a minute, is this right? Should players not be? And I don't know whether you agree or not. And again, it's a point for discussion, and it's possibly challenging somebody's thinking, but I think the players should be looking to play to the front line or in behind early if they can. Otherwise, are we missing out on a development tool for players? Are we missing out on players that can put the ball on the plate for the front unit? Great comment, Earl. Yeah, furthest player possible. Can we play space in behind with quality? Is that long ball? No, I don't think so. So yeah, I guess some of our work in the county is working with level 2 learners, and I see some fantastic projects in that, some brilliant pieces of work. But I don't see all the coaches working all the time, but I do wonder at times, do we let ourselves down as coaches by not seeing the bigger picture at times? And I guess I think moving into mentoring and working with other people, and working with some of the people that I work with at the minute, it's great to get some critical feedback on your work and really open your eyes on some of the stuff that you might not be seeing and observing because you're too busy in the moment. And to sort of elaborate on that turning question. When we're out working, we've had a discussion. When we're out working, a lot of our sessions that we see, and Ben, you might Ben from Isle of Man, I don't know what it looks like over there because you'll get to work with a few coaches yourself. I would say a good 75% are based around passing and receiving, and I kind of got thinking, I've got a little man at home here who's 5, and he's showing an interest in football, but he's telling us he wants to be a pop star. So we've got him a guitar, and a little microphone, and he loves having a little strum and a sing song with some music on, and I kind of got thinking, if this is going to move into guitar lessons, if I send him away for 28 weeks or 30, 36 weeks, whatever your season is, do I want him to come back and just play A and G notes, or maybe one chord? Or do I want him to come back with a real knowledge of the whole of the guitar and what the fretboard is and how to tune it up a little bit? Maybe you won't get that at 5, and maybe you won't get that. But what I'm getting at is there's a bigger picture to the technical corner, and I think we're getting better at getting the message out there that comes from sort of not just myself, but from the CCDs, from the FA, from Pete Surgis, you know. But I think we're getting better at getting the message out there. But you know, it's just sometimes it's about a little bit of challenging your own thought and pushing. Because what's going to happen? What's going to happen when your player hasn't got a pass? What's going to happen when your player hasn't got a pass? Because I look at it, 3 reasons for turning. To keep possession in high pressure situations. So somebody's trying to get the ball off us, I'm going to put the ball on safe side and turn away, and that could be 1v1 or 1v2. To beat or eliminate opponents, I might have a little turn, push the ball away, and I've left that person, the opponent, behind out the game. Or maybe for more experienced players, it's to change the picture of the game. So I'm a right back, we're playing out, I've received the ball off the goalkeeper, I get my head up, opposition's really compact, come across the pitch in front of us, I've got nothing but the space on the other side, turn and play across. So I've changed the picture of the game. Again, it was just to really challenge around thoughts and philosophy and how you want to play your game, but to share some experiences, one from my own learning as well, that yeah, without a doubt, I think I feel like I've maybe not done enough for players in the past, where have I really shown them the different long passes in the game? Have I really given them the tools to as a couple of the coaches said earlier on, the tools to get out of high pressure situations at times, to go from back to front in one rather than trying to play through a really good press, and that's just an extra tool to use, isn't it? Do you want to move on one for us, James?
Yeah.
Anybody got any feedback? Anybody want to sort of chip in on that one? No. But just again to touch on sort of what we've been talking about there, looking through another lens and having that opportunity to view what you're doing from another perspective. So again, from my own experience, I think really early on in my development, Penrith have gone there and not long been there, and the parents started to be a bit of a mentor to me at the time, and he was really helpful in terms of potentially pointing out some of the stuff that I was doing with the team at the time. It was an under-16 girls team. I was working towards a qualification, and he questioned, do the girls really need some of the stuff that you're doing with them? And I kind of took a step back, and I was like, well, hang on a minute, what's all this about? But that bit of critical analysis, if you like, of what I was doing really made us sort of take a step back and have a look at myself and think, you know what, who am I doing this for? Am I doing this for the players, or am I doing it for me? But at the same time, we need a chance to develop as well as coaches, and yeah, and I guess that having that feedback and somebody else looking at what you do, for me, it can be one of the best learning opportunities that you can have as a coach. And to touch on what Graham said earlier about people coming into your environment and doing that and seeing you week in, week out, I think there's a lot of value in that, and it's overlooked a little bit. So a great bit of learning that I had through Steve was, and it'll probably stick with me for a while, this one was, he's taken a video of us doing a bit of tutoring, sent us it over with some real just 3 or 4 real bullet points. It's not reams and reams of writing, but just 3 or 4 little bullet points to go away and work on. And that for me was, in terms of moving into tutoring, was as important as having a go out, going out there and having a go, if that makes sense. So to have somebody there and working with you or working with a parent, I know obviously Daz, you've got Liam with you there. Is there some times that you could probably get Liam involved in what you're doing, or whoever it might be? I'm just picking Daz out because I'm potentially working with Daz a little bit before the lockdown. But yeah, it's kind of got us thinking that we're here to raise awareness of the mentor program. But what about you in your own environment and the coaches that you work with? How do you bounce off each other? How do you shine a light on each other's work, and how because there's a real good chance to develop here, I think, and maybe take away a message for you to go back to your environment after all this is over and go, hang on a minute, what are we doing about us getting better? We're doing our bit to get the players better, but what about us getting better? If
Nick,
that makes sense. On,
yeah,
James.
mate, just a quick one. So what advice would you give to coaches that are potentially, so I've just dropped something in the chat around specifically looking at some coach behaviour, but how would you go about sort of advising, this is what you might set out to do, and work as a pair? So we see it quite a lot. It's a challenge to work sometimes as a coaching pair, but it also can provide a lot of benefits, like you've said there. Daz will definitely come to you next, mate, around it. But what advice would you give people around things like that to work better as a pair and potentially help with development of coach?
First things first, James, really simple. Share your session plans. Share your session plans and get involved in planning together. And it might be you give yourself a little bit of structure. So for the next 4 weeks, we're working on the topic, whatever it might be. How's that going to look? Who delivers when? And what I would definitely have a little look at, open your toolbox and try and think about where your strengths lie and where your areas for development are, and see if you can marry up some different strengths and areas for development. So as an example, James, if your communication's as good as what it is, and mine needs a little bit of work, I might just be looking at the way you question your players, or the way the different ways you communicate with your players, and that might be visually, verbally, and that might be a way to work around buddying up to sort of help develop in the bigger picture.
Yeah, spot on, mate. Earl, do you want to unmute yourself, mate, and just explain? I think a good idea of what you mean around your ghost coaching. Are you there, pal?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can, Earl.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Sometimes a coach can, if there's 2 coach and an assistant working together, then one of the coaches can work with individual players and individual challenges within the session, while the other coach coaches the whole session. And sometimes that can be a quite powerful way to work with the children. Yeah,
definitely. I think, and just picking up on that, I'm not sure where it's come from there, but I know rugby union do an awful lot like that around how they work with players. So someone will be in charge of the whole team, and leading on the team. And I'm sure, and this isn't, by the way, my knowledge, I will find the podcast and drop it in that I listened to on it, and it gave a great, and I actually think it might be one of Jack's, Ben Coulter thing. I think it come from the island, actually, with the head of sport over there. And I think there's something on there around the ghost coaching. So I'll drop it in there, because it's certainly a good way. When I was listening to it, I certainly found it useful around how they explain the different areas for coaching. Darren, do you want to explain how you work? So only pushed or just primed you on that a little bit around how you're working as a pair.
Yeah, I can do. Evening all. Basically.
Hi, Daz.
All right, Nick. Basically, me and Liam have kind of been together since under sevens. I kind of got the lead role, not that there is a lead role. And how we've done, because we're both inexperienced. I'd done my level 1 before I moved back to Carlisle. So we're kind of just bouncing ideas off each other from the get-go, and that kind of works for us. And with our shifts, sometimes I might not be there for 2 or 3 weeks, and he might be as well. So we have always kind of shared our session plans, and it's something that we find it works well for us. And we kind of ask each other to look at each other's session plan and how it can be improved, or what are we actually looking for within each session and going forward. So I know that while I think he might have done bits of his level 1 with you, Nick.
Yeah.
So while he was doing that, I kind of let him take the lead role, and I was just kind of, I would have liked to have thought I was ghost coaching. I was kind of helping out the little boys here and there. And then, I just kind of let him lead, and I would give him a little bit of feedback towards, maybe we need a little bit more clarification on that for them. And, maybe some of the language is a little bit too complicated for them to understand. So it's something that we've done for the last 18 months while we've been together. But I like the idea of the ghost coaching, or helicopter or microscope coaching, and it's something that I've written down in my notes and I'm going to take forward.
My thoughts, I love the idea, and it's something that I've worked with before, but how's that really helping you to develop as a coach and working with each other? I get that it's helping with the players, and it's giving you both contact time and probably more time coaching. But then what I'm getting at in terms of how can you get a little bit of critical feedback from each other? That's what I'm sort of thinking. Yeah, that was the sort of route I was taking. Do you see where I'm coming from?
I do see, and it's difficult for us to both be, I mean, critical, because we're both as experienced as each other. So it's not like one of us has got 10 years coaching or whatever. But I think experience is relative, really. I think I've played football for 30 years and I've picked up a lot. So throughout that. But no, I think it's just, to be honest, at this stage for us and where we're at, it was just more on how the session's being delivered, and whether, there's a lot of standing time or we're trying to explain things a little bit too much. As at the end of the day, they're 6, 7, 8 years old. So, all they want to do is come and put the ball down and kick it in the goal, really, as we all do. So I think that from that point of view, that's about as critical as we get. And in terms of the session plan, it's for me, going into my level 2 with yourself, Nick, is I try and look at what Liam's doing or what I'm doing, and try and again look at it from a like an overview. How would I try and look at it as, how would another coach, if I was writing this for another coach, would it make sense for him?
Yeah.
So I am getting a lot out of the level 2, and it is opening up my thinking of how we can do it. And I know that obviously this season's been washed because of what we're going through, but I've already got little plans in place for next season and what we're going to be doing.
Yeah. And I guess there's the one of potentially asking Liam to check in some ways on your sessions, if you were sort of doing sessions towards a level 2. So kind of some of the stuff we've covered already, where does it sit on the spectrum? What kind of is there plenty of repetition in there of the learning focus, etc.? Does that make sense? Does somebody else can check that for you as well as while you're in the heat of battle, if you like? Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely, and we do try and take it in turns that throughout, because we only get them for an hour for training, and then obviously we have an hour on match day. So for the session itself, one of us will do the arrival activity while the other coach is setting up kind of the main bulk of what we're planned for that day, for that session. And then once that's done, because we're in a little pen, it's quite small. The Harrowby 3G is difficult. You know yourself, Nick. You've been down and you've studied much. So
I totally get that, mate. Yeah, without a doubt.
But
then
hopefully
as well, sharing the session. So one looking at the arrival activity and leading on that, and the other one taking a step back, and then the other one taking main content, and maybe you share the game. At the end, it's there's another way of looking at it. And Andrew's sort of alluded to that. Both on the same page. One takes one side of the pitch, the other takes the other. One takes one team, the other takes the other. Do you want to move on to the next slide, James?
Yeah,
Can I just jump in there for a second, Nick?
Yeah, of course, can, Steve.
Listen, Daz, listen to you speaking with your clarity of thought. Brilliant. Really fascinated with your such clarity and passion. Really inspiring. Listen, when you're working, your term, did you say best friend?
Sorry,
no, he's not. Liam's not my best. He's not my best mate, but he's a good mate. I've known Liam for
Brilliant.
12, 13 years now.
Right. So. Yeah. That came across how you spoke. Listen, one little tip next time you work together. Listen to what Nick and what James is saying. Just try this. Once you go away from the session, just write down three things that you think went really well, and one thing you reflect on that you'd like to have done better, but do it independently of your partner. So a couple of days after the session, you write 3 things down that have gone well. 3 stars and a wish. Nickel talked to you about.
Yeah.
3 things that have gone well, and 1 thing you'd like to have gone better. Write them down independently though. Don't sort of talk about them before. Then compare your notes, Daz, and that's a good way to critically reflect. But it's important that you do it independently, because what tends to happen is we'll tend to agree on the 3 things that have gone well, and we might then agree on the 1 thing we'd like to do better. But if we do it independently, then share it. That's a very simple way to reflect.
No, yeah, Steve, that's a good thought. I've never thought of it like that. We usually, especially after a game or whatever, we usually give each other a couple of hours, and then we'll chat on the phone, and we talk through what we think went well. Do you think what we did, because we tend to train on a Friday and then we're playing on a Saturday, so we try and did what we tried to get going on the Friday come out in Saturday? If not, how can we get better? How can we get it across better?
Okay, guys, can I just fire in can I just fire in a minute warning? So if we pause here, we'll return. Just drop in the chat box. I'm conscious of time, that's all. And I don't want to miss it again and get told off like I did the first time. So jump away. The call will stay on. Just jump away for the clap, and then we'll get back in sort of a few minutes after 8 o'clock. Cheers. Kitchy's back. Steve's back. Is the clap cat quite wild, Nick, at your end, or is it?
It's quieting down, James. It was a lot quieter tonight. We have had fireworks nearby us and stuff like that. But it was quietish tonight. Sure. Done. All right. Okay. I'm gonna mute James because little man's pushing his.
Cheers, Biff. Let's have a look. Justine's back. Guys, just in the chat function, if you just drop a note in to say you're back when the majority are back, we've just been sort of getting cracked on, really. Stuff looks like back with a bag of midget gems. Oh, I haven't had that term for a while, Jackie. Midget gems. Are you sharing them? Cheers, Dan. Right, guys. I think we'll get sort of cracking again. Thanks, Earl. Cheers, Dan. Nick, I don't know where I've just dropped in there, guys. It's just something that, and we were talking a little bit about reflection there. So just a real simple model that I, as you can tell with my links, for some reason I've changed from Google to, which is driving me mad, Yahoo. I don't know why, but it's a real simple model for reflection. It's by Gibbs, and it just takes you around a cycle, and it's real basic questions. So if you have an issue, or you came across a sort of a critical point in the session that either never went to plan or you struggled with, and the guys on the call, Steve and Nick and Graham, will have loads more, I'm sure, that we can share after this. But a real simple one. It takes you through a series of questions just to try and get to the bottom, and generate some clarity of thought, which I'm guessing is on the sort of the key around the reflection process. Nick, do you want me to move on, budge on a slide?
Yeah, you can do, mate, please.
Yeah. That should start to come through now, mate.
Yeah. So we
Dan Tyre
is now joining.
Are you all right? We okay there, James?
Yeah. Just bash on. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I mean, so we've kind of, I suppose, just started to touch on this, the plan, do, review, FA plan, do, review model there, like that. But what Graham and me sort of started to think about as well was in the work that we do when we're out there, sort of how do we, how many times do we see the coach writing into the session plan, this is what I want to get better at out the session. We always talk about making the players better in the session, but what about our own personal development within that plan? So as you know, as everybody's sort of been maybe heard earlier on, I'm privy to work with Graham at the Girls Advanced Centre, and I asked for I don't ask to see all the session plans, but I asked the coaches to plan all the sessions. So I know Graham's big at sort of wanting to understand his questioning a little bit deeper. So he'll actually write his questions to the players into the session plan, if that makes sense. So that's already in the plan. So the part of his development, working on his questions, and to be fair, it's something that I've noticed from starting to work with him at the beginning of last season, was his questioning's really good. He's able to get a lot of information back from his questioning, which is something I guess one of my mentors has asked me to consider, is to improve my questioning. So yeah, what we've talked about, I suppose, when we were looking at the last slide, kind of links in with the plan to do, and then Steve started to touch on reflection, and it's really interesting that Steve's touched on that 3 stars and a wish, because I've just been looking at some stuff on reflection this week, because I think that's all we can do at the minute, isn't it? It's sort of reflect on where we're at and what we're doing, and sort of trying to look to the future and maybe do a little bit of planning for the future. But again, just to go back to that sort of working as a pair and maybe understanding each other on a bit of a deeper level, is the reckon reflection, the stuff that I was looking at this week, sort of saying that reflection's far deeper learning out of it when it's done in conjunction with somebody else. Because what do you really see in the session? What do you actually, unless you video the session and you watch it back through and you watch yourself back through, what do you really see in the session? Because you're just there delivering, and you're knocking the session out all the time. So you really, how deep can you see into that session, if that makes sense? So yeah, in terms of reflection, I like to look at it as hot and cold, and also in action. And so we can sometimes recognise our mistakes straight away. Other times we don't see them till later on, and sort of have a little reflect and a review about what went well and what could, as Graham's put on there, but what could be even better next time, and do I need to change anything? Is sort of is a way to start reflecting. So hot reflection, just be very careful with it. There was a great one I had recently with a player. I'd done a session with some younger players, and it's interesting. It really resonated that I do this and I see other people doing this. This kid's absolutely loved the session, and then he's got in the last 10 minutes of the session, he's in front of goal and accidentally got cleaned out in front of goal. So another kid's just come across, missed time tackle, didn't mean to hurt him, and the kids ended up in floods of tears. I've sat down with the players at the end of the session and said, what did you like the most about that session? Was it the game at the start? Was it the practice in the middle, or the game at the end? And this kid's just getting over the tears, and he turns around and he said, I didn't like any of it, but for 50 minutes of the session he's absolutely buzzing away and looking like he loved every minute. I said to the 2 coaches that I was working with, he's only remembering the last 10 minutes, isn't he? He's only remembering that knock in front of goals and the tears. And I guess sometimes we reflect like that as well, that we come off and sort of we start looking for the bad points straight away. Whereas if we sit back and relax a little bit and take a time out, we might be able to sort of start to digest some of the stuff that went well first, and then start to look at some of the stuff that might need to be changed or could be better for next time. I don't know if anybody else sort of wants to chip in and sort of sees what we're talking about there, but it's definitely something that I've been able to develop with the help of others. Again, it's not something that I think I've been great at doing on my own, but when I've been working with others, it's straight away afterwards. How do you think that went? And then I've got quite good at sending over a text message a couple of days later, and the text message will read completely different to or the email text message, depending on whether I'm coaching or mentoring. It'll read completely different to that red hot reflection afterwards, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think there's some good points coming in, Nick, here as well.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, brilliant.
Simon, definitely. The harshest critics usually the players, probably the most honest as well, or your son, who'll definitely, I'm guessing, be the most honest on the way home. So they're good points. I think what We've started doing more around sort of these 360 reviews, or certainly starting to come in. So pretty much where you can get and gather opportunities to reflect on or feedback from, then ultimately what I would say with certainly in the role that we kind of do is that you've got to be thick-skinned and you've got to have broad shoulders, because some of the reflections are harsh, but I wouldn't see it as a negative. I've got a big thing at the minute, and I'm starting to look more at it, and those that have been on course with me will know is that we might need to start being a bit more selfish as coaches. So we put a lot of time and effort into, and I don't mean selfish I mean selfish in the best terms. So we might need to start to consider, well, what do we want out of it, rather than just we want to give to the players. They are absolutely key, but also what's our plan. So as a coach, what's my plan as a coach? If I'm going to spend, let's be honest, 10, 20 hours a week, putting my life and soul into coaching, and it's not my job that I get paid for, then what am I going to get out of it? What am I going to be better at tomorrow? And what am I going to be better at next week? So what I would say is that we're in a great time now, and I think you mentioned it, Nick, we're in an absolute critical time where we can start to sort of plan for us. And if anybody hasn't, what I'd encourage you to do is start to consider, well, what am I getting? What am I going to do? What am I going to be better at? And you'll be able to put a plan in place, and that might be working with, like Simon said there, it might be with the players, right? Every session we're going to review what they got out of it. It might be with your parent, your harshest parent. That might be a way to get them on board. It might be with your assistant coach. So just what I would say off the back of this, certainly, and it's coming through loud and clear from the guys, is when do we start to consider us? And that's certainly something I'm thinking about now as Nick and the guys are talking. It's at what point in the timeline are we considered? And I'll just leave it there, because it's something that I certainly think I'm starting to think about now. Nick, do you want me to move on, pal?
Yeah, thanks.
Just conscious of time, yeah.
I totally agree. We sometimes are very selfless, aren't we? And yeah, I think there's sometimes a balance to find of improving us as well as improving the players that we work with. Just wanted to, I chatted with Steve and requested this. I just wanted to share this with you. The left-hand side of this slide is the Northwest region. So that's what the programme looked like last season. Obviously, we've not been able to collect the figures for this season because we've finished at what we call quarter three, the end of quarter three. So we're kind of quarter of the season missing for this season. But so yeah, there's 61 mentors working across the Northwest. Over 150 clubs have been allocated a mentor. That's grassroots clubs. Supported over 1,700 coaches. 434 female, 156 BME. And we've got 186 through the FA developing coaches through a mentoring course, and 22 UEFA B licensed coaches directly supported. And then the right hand side looks, this is what Cumberland looked like sort of last season. 6 mentors, the biggest that the team's ever been up here. And yeah, and the figures for the work that we've done in grassroots and some of the investment as well, to be fair. We're not here to sell the programme. We get that some people are not aware of it, and it was just hopefully to raise a little bit of more awareness of it as well. If Graham, Steve, if you want to chip in anything on that, please feel free.
I think, yeah, thanks, Nick. I think the figures are the figures are a bit of an overview. I think what is probably the thing we celebrate most is the relationships between the mentors and the mentees. I think that's the most important thing. And the other thing we celebrate is, you know, we're proud in Cumberland, as we are everywhere, to try and support everybody, no matter what background, no matter what no matter what person you are. We're looking to support you in any way, shape we can, and that's reflected in the numbers. I once got asked, you know, how inclusive I once got asked at a conference in London, how inclusive are you? And I always say we there isn't anybody we won't work with, in terms of if they come and ask us for help, we'll try and work with them. And I think that's portrayed in those figures there, which is a credit to the likes of James, Graham, Nick, and the team of coach mentors in Cumberland. So thanks for sharing that, Nick.
Cheers, Steve. And then the last one, James, please. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for the time to listen to us talk about a little bit of mentoring and around the technical corner. There is a lot more diversity to what we do, and I hope we've touched on that. If there's any questions, please feel free. Should you look in future as we get back, if it's something that you might be interested in, sharing a few ideas and bouncing some of your ideas off us and having it's definitely a two-way reciprocal process. It's not Yoda and Luke Skywalker or Del Boy and Rodders. That's not what we do. It's definitely reciprocal in a two-way process. And the picture on the right, hopefully we'll see some of that, and we'll get back to a bit of grassroots football in the near future, or in the future, when things move to a better time.
Yeah, I think, and just on that, and thank you guys for coming on this evening. This is a programme, and those that have heard me talk about, if you haven't, this is a programme where really, and I don't say this about many FA programmes, there are no strings attached. So it is a programme that is there genuinely to help you. So if anybody's on the call this evening listening and thinking, do you know what, I could maybe do with a little bit of help, or I'm on my own, I might need a critical friend, I might need somebody. They don't have to be there every week, and I'll be honest, probably with their diaries as well and trying to get everybody in, the likelihood of them being there every session is unlikely. But what they will do is they will put some time aside to call, to email, to text, to be there when needed, to even come and show you some stuff. And I think the guys that are on the call that have had access to it before will agree that just having a different lens Nick talked about earlier is of only benefit to us all. I get that with the work that we do. Even on the courses, having somebody there that can just give you a different perspective, maybe challenge your thinking a little bit more, is advantageous. So if anybody is interested, if anybody sounds like, actually that sounds all right, it's free, by the way, as well. I don't think anyone's mentioned that. It's of absolute no cost at all whatsoever to the grassroots coaches. What I would also encourage, and I'm sure Nick and the guys will, is that probably much the people that are on the course, certainly a lot of names, you might start to be seen as people that have done a lot within coaching. If people are interested in how we might create a network of internal mentors, again, that's something that Nick and the team can help with. So it might be just some tools. The development coaches through a mentoring course, which Nick delivers, gives you certainly a lot of tools to help you work with other adults and other coaches, because I get it's daunting at times. So when we get back, please feel free just to give us a shout, either Steve, myself, even Nick, if you know Nick, or anyone. And what we'll do is we'll signpost you through the correct channels and get you in on the programme. The guys that are outside the county, honest, I can't speak for other counties. But Steve, if you drop Steve Smithers an email, he'll definitely
just drop me an email, yeah.
Direct you to the right regional mentor officer that will be able to support you. So yeah, but and I think the goal of the programme was certainly, and Earl, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, is that developing mentors within clubs that can support other people then is absolutely key. So we start to leave, and I think the original term was we start to leave a bit of a legacy with the programme, and it's happening. It definitely is happening. So like I say, if you want to tap on some of the knowledge and experience, please do so. If you're from outside the county, you can fire an email to me, and I'll forward it on to Steve, and Steve will find the correct one. But feel free to go direct to Steve as well. I know Steve definitely won't mind. Thanks, guys, for that. I don't know if anyone's got any last questions for the guys. Drop them in as we go. But I know I've seen Danny just jump on the call, mate. I don't know if you can unmute yourself, can you?
Yeah, evening.
Top man. So next, what we've done every week, so we sort of lined next week gets up, and you'll definitely, if you're from our county, you'll know Danny. So Danny's going to come on. We've sort of had a brief overview. There's a load I know that Danny can talk about. Danny, do you want to give just an overview of what you're going to do, mate, or talk about?
Yeah, I'm just going to cover obviously my early career, grassroots, and stepping into the academy side of it. Then obviously a little bit older, going into the pro side of the game. Managers that I've worked with, clubs I've played for, things I've taken from each manager. There'll be a few things that will go against some managers that'll be anonymous because obviously not everything's going to be good. Sometime I'm going to go over highlights and lowlights of my career, and I'll just touch ever so slightly on me going into the management at Working Reds, and also a little bit on my own academy that I've started up.
Cheers, mate. That's next week. I thought we'd try. So we've had 7 weeks now from particularly a coaching perspective. Those of you from in our county, you'll know Danny, and he's probably doing himself, or he will do himself a disservice. He's probably one of the few captains of a professional club that has been on the front face of the community for certainly the time that I've known. Always first to do something, always first to jump in and help out, always first to turn up to an event. And I knew it wouldn't be a problem with him coming on here. So he's going to try and share, like I say, that professional footballer's insight that we maybe don't often hear about. It'll be what's and all, Danny, won't it? Other than the names.
Again, sorry.
Yeah, I said it'll be what's and all, other than the names.
Yeah. There'll be plenty to divulge, that's for sure.
So if you've got any, what I would say is if you've got any questions prior, either drop them in or just have them prepared, because I know, like I say, life as a pro footballer sounds all glamorous, but I'm sure Danny will share with you some sort of stories that might also put another lens, as we spoke about lenses on it. So thanks, Danny, for coming on next week, and I'm sure it'll be another decent one. Guys, that's kind of brings us to a close. As I've said in every one, firstly, can I thank Nick, Graham, Steve for putting the time in. They've put some time in this week and the week before to kind of put some content together. It's certainly got me thinking. And like you say, you come out of these sessions, I think, with the one thing for me is about how are we being selfish in such a selfless job. So certainly something for me to consider. What are we trying to get out of it? Share it, keep sharing the stuff. So we'll, like I said, we've shared this far and wide now. So we set off just Cumberland, but pretty much we've got people from all over coming on. So again, feel free, share it with people that you work with, share it with the coaches within your club, even from outside the county. All we are literally trying to do, and I've said it, we're trying to keep it quite relaxed and informal, but we want to try and engage with people that want to engage, and just give a little bit of time back. I think Graham said earlier that the standard of guests that we've had, and I include this one and the guys on this call as well, has been excellent. I'm not so sure how long I can keep it up for with recruiting the guys in, but we'll definitely keep going. Certainly, I'm hoping until the end of lockdown, and then we'll go from there. And contact us, share the stuff on Twitter that you have been. It is much appreciated. And I'll leave it with this every week, and I will leave it with you again. Is that if we can help, if we can change something, like I said, we've tried, or I've tried to give you a different slant next week with Danny. If we can help with anything at all, just get in touch with us, and we'll do what we can. I appreciate. I've certainly felt it myself. This last week has been hard in lockdown, and I'm sure other people are feeling the same. So if we can give you something different that you're after, I know there's other counties doing other things that are slightly different. So do that. We have started to get our podcast out now, so that's been a long time coming. There'll be a podcast with these guys that goes out. So we recorded that a couple of seasons ago now, and it's sat on the back burner. So we've got an episode with these guys, a bit more of sort of the kind of stuff that we heard this evening. But yeah, just leave you with that. Thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of your evenings, and look forward to speaking with you next Thursday. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, James. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Graham. Great session.
Yeah.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you. Cheers for that, James. Cheers, Graham.
Is now exiting.
Thanks, guys.